Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. Of course, it's a bright Friday morning from where we sit, and we want to first of all apologize deeply for coming way behind schedule. Of course, technical glitches that we had to sort out this morning, and still decided that we needed to catch up with you, our very esteemed, viewers on Rise and Shine this morning. We do apologize for the delay in transmission, but we are here this morning to do Rise and Shine with you. Of course, talking Nigeria and the Nigerian issues. My name is Uyai Aneken. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
And I am Francis Oyimaidet. Good morning. Thanks for joining us and thanks for your understanding. I mean, we know you've been there. You probably had been wondering what is happening, why are we missing out this morning? Well, we just made sure we had to make sure you don't miss out. And today a lot is happening across Nigeria. And of course, as part of a developing story, we saw that Federal High Court in the Capital Territory, Abuja, struck out an ace-party application filed by the Department of State Services, DSS, to secure an order to detain further the embattled suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, for a further 14 days based on fresh evidence they said they have uncovered. On the application, the judge, Edward Ekpo, had questioned counsel to the DSS, Victor Ejelonu, on the court's jurisdiction in view of the provisions of Section 293 and 296 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which versed exclusive rights on the magistrate court to grant detention order. Now, this is just sparing out from what transpired just a few days ago, the premises of the court in Lagos State, where the DSS had to weeks away Godwin Emefiele, who was directed to be reprimanded in the custody of the Nigerian Correctional Facility, pending the clarification on the bail term that was granted to him on the case brought before the court between him and the federal government bordering on illegal possession of firearms. We saw what happened. Nigerians are still yet to recover from that national embarrassment on the international community. But I don't know, sometimes it seems like security forces are just not done enough. It seems the DSS was moving this as a last attempt to save face for the scuffle that happened at the court premises.
Well, this is a rather sorry situation, but we've seen how this particular case continues to evolve at this time. Of course, like we had preempted on the day that that squabble happened, we had said, will Godwin Emefiele be, paying his 20 million naira bail fee and then just allowed to walk? We had said, what exactly is going to happen after that situation. But of course, we now see here that the court has rejected the DSS application to extend Emefiele's detention. Of course, so it's more like we are still asking, is it now the DSS versus Emefiele, or what exactly is the contention? What exactly is the bone of contention in this particular issue? Because, I mean, if the court has said Godwin Emefiele can, pay 20 million naira bail and be able to walk because the court says we are not seeing him as a flight risk, in the country. So why then, why then are we back and forth with the DSS saying, oh, we still want to further detain him? It's good to see that the court has given this injunction, but then again, we have to wait and see, is the DSS going to obey the court rejection of their request to keep detaining Godwin Emefiele? Like we said, this particular case is spiraling out of the expected boundaries that it was supposed to follow. But that's that's it on that particular story with regards to Godwin Emefiele this morning. There's still a back and forth with the DSS and the detention of Godwin Emefiele. The court is saying you cannot further detain him. We've already said he can pay 20 million and be bailed out of the detention whilst these purported investigations continue at this time. But then again, there is another story here that we want to look at quickly this morning. The Nigeria Police Force is saying that they are not going to take lightly the abuse of their uniform. Of course, last year, we know that a certain comedian, Cute Abiola, who was in the Nigerian military, of course, if I'm not mistaken, yes, the Nigerian military was caught in a brawl. He even had to withdraw from the Nigerian military at the time because he said, oh, he preferred to take on his comedy, career. Now we still see here that he's gotten into some kind of brawl with the Nigerian police force, and they are saying that they are not going to go without punishing the abuse of their uniform. Of course, the law grants that Nigerians the right to enjoy their fundamental human rights. Now they're saying the same law prohibits an individual under whatever guise from rubbishing the police institution or grossly violating its provisions with regards to the use of uniforms. Now, of course, they're vehemently condemning the contentious act displayed by comedian Abdul Ghaffar Abiola, popularly known as Cute Abiola, in two recent skits posted on his social media handles on the 20th and 24th of July 2023. Now, the skit in question show a highly disrespectful and derogatory portrayal of the police uniform, an action that is in direct violation of section 251 of the Criminal Code and section 133 of the Penal Code law. Now, this is the issue on ground, and the Nigeria Police Force saying they're going to take this up. If we do a quick run to comedians in our country, would also advise that at this point, although some of these skits that they take on are revelatory, it makes us know some of the issues happening in the country. Please be guided to how much the Constitution covers what you're doing, because right here, when we have the Nigerian Police Force being able to cite where you have violated their boundaries within the Constitution, this is a major problem. You cannot just discuss it back and forth. So whether this is going to be taken forward and eventually he's going to be charged to court or not, our thought would be this morning, comedians and anyone who needs to cross into another professional line to make any kinds of contribution, please be sure what you're covering and what your boundaries are within the law.
Well, as far as this issue is concerned, it happened last year, still with Cute Abiola,
yes.
And it's happening again. But one thing my mind hasn't forgotten has been the fact that the legal expert had said, within the provisions of the same quoted Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, entertainers are granted express right to use any military or accoutrement across board for entertainment purposes, as long as you are using it for performances, as long as the aim is to entertain, as long as the aim is to enlighten the people, it is within the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So yes, we'll have the Nigerian police speak from a different point of view, probably because what Cute Abiola is showing off to the world is something that they have been fingered to be doing by Nigerians across borders. So if you look at the scenario playing out, what did Cute Abiola do? Replicating what Nigerians have seen on the streets with police engagement. The best thing at this point the Nigerian police ought to have done is look back into its institution and say, the portrayal of this being made in the skit, is it truly reflecting the attitude, the mindset, the display of our men and women on the streets of Nigeria? And then if it is, look back and see how to reform the police institution to make sure such occurrences don't happen. As far as this case is concerned, it's going to be between the Nigerian police and, of course, Cute Abiola, and not just Cute Abiola at this point, because once a comedian is convicted, once any entertainer is convicted, then you rolled out the provisions within the constitution of the country for this certain persons to utilize. It's like if you recall back in Akwa Ibom State, same time last year, a certain costumier was arrested and was immediately indicted of being in possession of firearms. But these were costumes, these were designs made from natural wood, just as a look-alike guns used on set for performances, used on set for shooting films, that you will literally sit and watch those guns and you would look like they are real guns. Meanwhile, they are things carved out of wood. So the Nigerian police, it took the intervention of the Nigerian Guild of Actors in Akwa Ibom State Branch and other, organizations in the film industry to come to the rescue of that young man. But the Nigerian police force in Akwa Ibom State had already said this is a criminal. They have leveled accusations against him and even were ready to take him to court. So in this situation, it's not just about jumping into action, laying allegations on Nigerians entertainers. It's about knowing that every single one of us have been guided, properly guided. And if you look at the likes of Cute Abiola, look at his exposure, the fact that he's been in the military, this is definitely not someone who would go into taking actions without necessarily looking through the legal implications of those actions. So it is going to be between the Nigerian police force, the entertainers, and the law court to decide what actually happened. Let's assume they're going to take it to court, as they have said.
Well, the judiciary is there to interpret the law and make it, really understandable to every party involved. Because the Nigerian police force is saying, the way Cute Abiola depicted them is, derogatory and all of that. But all of this is going to be solved within the confines of the law. And when we have overlapping phrases and what would I call it now, within the constitution, some people take this other part to run with their case and other people take the other part to run with their case. At the end of the day, the judiciary is the one that will be able to balance this out. But it's important that all of us are guided. And also some Nigerians are seeing this as the Nigerian police force putting their energy on something that is not necessary. So it's just important that we are guided in whatever our pursuit is at this time. Like you said, Cute Abiola should know better. He's been in the system and he's been forewarned for this kind of issue before. So we'll just expect that he wouldn't have just, sprung up to take, this action once again. But then moving on from there, we see the fact that the House of Reps has constituted its House Committee and named its Speaker. Tajuddin Abbas, of course, who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, gave this information yesterday.
Well, of course, the nomination list has been, long expected in Nigeria. That's literally the one thing that Nigerians had been waiting for. And finally, the list is out. And the conversations around the list, first questions Nigerians are asking is, why was there so much secrecy as far as the list is concerned? Why did Nigerians had to wait for that much? Two lists actually came out yesterday, talking about first the one by Tajuddin Abbas, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, where different chairmen of the different committees were announced. And of course, these Nigerians have said is finally taking the last shape, and Nigerians are expecting that with the constitutions and the leadership of the different committees now set in motions, we'll get to see a lot more conversations, a lot more engagement at the House of Reps. And of course, in line with that, we also saw the Senate releasing officially the list of the ministers as far as President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration is concerned. And we have the likes of Dr. Doris Aniche Uzoka, His Excellency David Mahi, Yesom Wike, Badaro Bubaka, and the rest of them, so many of them on that list. And Nigerians are questioning why.
Well, that's something we are definitely going to get into just a few moments away from this. But speaking of Tajuddin Abbas, the number of committees increased from the previous 109 to 134. So within the House of Representatives, we now have 134 committees. Of course, remember, I think that was last 2 weeks, we're having different members within the House grapple for what committee heads they're going to be able to be at this time. But we also see here that the ex-deputy Speaker of the House, Idris Wase, was named Chairman, Committee on Federal Character, while ex-chairman Committee on Appropriation, Mukta Batera, emerged as Chairman, Committee on the Federal Capital Territory. We also see former House Leader Al-Hassan Ado Doguwa, a supporter of Abbas in the race for the speakership, backed the chairmanship of the House Committee on Petroleum Resources, of course, upstream petroleum resources. Of course, other committee heads are Aminu Jaji, Ecological Fund Committee Head, Miriam Onoha, Tertiary Education Trust Fund Head, Abubakar Bichi, Appropriation Committee Head, Afam Ogene, Renewable Energy We also see here James Faleke is committee chairman in charge of finance, and Salam Bamidele, public accounts committee. Of course, there's a number of listings here, as it was reeled out by Tajuddin Abbas yesterday, to cater for the 134 committees that have been instituted in the House of Representatives.
Well, the list was out, and of course, Akwa Ibom also celebrated yesterday. We had the likes of our very own Rep Sunyimi Dem, also given as chairman of one of the committees. We also had appointed as the chairman committee on monitoring and evaluation of implementation of legislative agenda by, of course, the Speaker Tajuddin Abbas. We had Barrister Dr. Patrick Moore, who is the member representing a Sienomika federal constituency. And of course, we had a lot of other Akwa Ibomites who are at the House also being nominated and given chairmanship and leadership of different organizations. So it's been a wonderful development, and Nigerians are looking forward to see the real deal, talking about legislation across border and seeing, you know, what the 10th National Assembly has to offer Nigerians. Before now, it was a matter
Thomas says they are not the 10th, that they are the 8th legislature. You know, it was such a big reveal. But then Tajuddin Abbas is saying that these various chairmen of the different committees emerged after the committee took time to deeply check for fairness and inclusivity, which is a major issue. You know, like now you balance things, you've cut across, you know, people from different senatorial districts and the different geopolitical zones of the country, so that we are not running against ourselves within, you know, this committee head. Of course, he said the selection committee relied on the capacity, experiences, knowledges and competences across all of these persons. So that is very, very important, and congratulations to all of the committee heads. Now we must say it was a big tussle, and for these particular persons to emerge, well, it's a well done. Like you said, let's see what they are really going to get to do within the House of Reps in this 8th or 10th National Assembly, depending on what you call it. Well, a quick one to NMA. We see that that's the Nigerian Medical Association. Of course, we are standing on the brink of a strike action by this particular set of persons. Yesterday, across the country, we saw hospitals dry up and patients were not able to get any kinds of attention whatsoever in most hospitals in the country. Now, we are seeing the Nigerian Medical Association demand a memorandum of understanding as the federal government okays 25,000 naira doctors allowance. They're saying beyond the speech, let's get a memorandum of understanding.
Well, definitely, we've seen different MOUs being signed between the federal government and different unions. But then implementation has always been the question. So beyond implementation, the medical union are also asking for the federal government to put pen to paper so they can have something to reference in the event that the federal government goes back on its word by not fulfilling the promises or implementing the terms so far agreed upon. And of course, we've seen different strikes being called off. But this one is another one that will be called off. But then I think the association is taking the bull by the horn and ensuring that in the event that they call off the strike, and of course based on the agreement, and something goes wrong on the side of the federal government, they'll now have something tangible to look back on and hold for it. Especially in the area where the federal government is taking trade organizations to court every now and then, you definitely would need something to show for that you had exhausted every, negotiating arsenals at your disposal before taking the last action.
Well, that's it's worthy of note. I think with the NLC-TUC strike also that has been purported for the 2nd of August, we see that they have received the court injunction saying that, they cannot go ahead with that particular strike. This is a conversation we had yesterday. We're looking at the fact that, the NLC-TUC have forewarned that on the 2nd of August, if the federal government does nothing, they're going to go on a strike. But of course, as of yesterday, we saw that their communiques about the fact that they cannot go on that strike, that prohibited, that they should come back and look for other negotiating means to alleviate or mitigate whatever their issues are with the federal government. But I do not really know where that puts, the trade unions or the labor unions in the country at this time. Is this a good thing when we keep seeing the arsenals of the states being used against its people?
Well, it's not going to go well for the Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration unless they rescind their steps, retrace their steps, and then begin to do things right. It's one thing for you to take trade unions, organizations before the law court. Will you be able to take the whole Nigerians before the law court? Because this time around, it's not just about the trade unions. For the first time, all the unions, all the organizations, all the persons are speaking with one voice in one accord. So the NLC, the TUC, ASU, the National Association of Nigerian Student Parent Teachers Association, the entirety of Nigerians are ready to go all out against the federal government. And of course, let's not forget the power resides with the people. And regardless of how many people we have in government, when the people unanimously unite against the government, there is no way the government is going to win, because the people put the government there. So it's about time the federal government looks past going to obtain court injunctions and court order to prevent things from happening, and rather look at solving those challenges and those, the situation that brought about those challenges, so that we can go ahead and have a beautiful, country that we all are aspiring and hoping for. And of course, the hope is that Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the president, and his Renew Hope agenda should know better than focus on, court judgment or court injunctions.
At this time. Well, I really don't have words to compete on that. You put it in the best way possible. But of course, we've been seeing a lot of public sector reforms, policy reforms since May 29, when the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration came on board. Different things have been rejected, back and forth. Now we also see that the federal government has unveiled revised public service rules. For the longest time, the public sector has been run on different modalities, I must say, and then we're having new hands on the saddle of responsibility of leadership within the public sector, and they have unveiled new rules and regulations that the public service is going to be run by. First question before I even attempt to go into what these rules are: we do hope that these rules that have been unveiled will not just cover lower rungs of power, lower cadre in the system. We do hope that these rules cover people at the echelon of leadership in the public sector, because we've continued to say we need reforms where governance within even these public sectors are concerned. So we are hoping that the federal government has also called itself to order, not just the people working under it. But of course, yesterday being Thursday, we saw the federal ministries, departments and agencies and parastatals, among others, be ordered to commence the implementation of the new public service rules with immediate effect. Now, the public service rules contain guidelines on the code and conduct of civil servants and disciplinary measures, amongst others. Right. Now, of course, speaking at the State House on Thursday during the unveiling of the new revised PSR, the head of Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemiesan, said the newly revised public service rules were revised before the end of the former President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration. And in line with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu, they're launching it and expecting that MDAs will begin the implementation. Now, of course, majorly we are seeing digitalization as part of, the biggest agenda on the table for the civil service in the country. We're also seeing that mechanisms be put in place for smooth transition from physical handling of tasks to electronic means.
It's I must say at this point in time that most times when government rise up to take policy statement, make policy statement, take a different turn, and aspire to bring transformation to the handling of things in the country, it oftentimes end up in a laughable state. Why? Because the measures that should have been put in place before now had not been put in place. You're talking about complete digitalization in handling of the civil service processes in the different offices. The first questions people will ask, Nigerians would ask, the right thinking people will ask is, has the government been able to put in place proper training? Are the manpower of the Nigerian government properly trained as far as ICT is concerned? How much percentage of the Nigerian civil service workforce are ICT compliant? How many of such people have been able to professionally hone the skill that is required or would be required to run these electronic handling of issues within the rank and file of government? That's question number one. Two, what infrastructural modalities have been put in place? How many of our offices have internet connection, stable internet connection, have Wi-Fi connection and all of that. I recall, we know that sometime a few months ago, the federal government did come out to announce that, okay, we're going to have a number of airports, a number of federal institutions with free Wi-Fi access and all of that. But we're yet to see those things happening across, the respective states of Nigeria. So many would say at this point the federal government is moving way too fast without necessarily putting in place the modality that is required for this to actually be proficient and efficient. Without those trainings, what we are going to see is probably going to see another expenses spent to or budgeted or used in purchasing ICT gadgets, computers, and all of that. And then go back 4 years from now, you find those computers spoiled and stashed away in different offices and stores across the federal, the different MDAs of government. So it's not just about the policy, it's about planning. It's about time the federal government of Nigeria looks at giving time to actually plan, train, retrain, and make sure that the experts that are going to handle this really are ready before going for the transition. Otherwise, we're just going to see another failed policy.
Very, very, very strong points raised there. Beyond chunking in money into the sectors and revising, let's be sure that manpower has been duly equipped for the new reforms. Let's take a very quick break right now. When we return, we're going to be joined with our guest. There's a lot happening in Nigeria, of course. I know that the presidency and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, several names have come up on that list. We want to have a quick talk right now with Victor and Nilaju. Let's see what's on the minds of Nigerians and what's the expectations are.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force.
To say something here, perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to the attempted murder of Hebrew?
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding you, Your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Legally Speaking.
us. This is Rise and Shine, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, we like to take our conversations to the human angle and look at issues happening. And some of them, in the process of all this, are also trafficked in and out, even also within the country. This is a conversation we want to look into right now to child labor. Joining us this morning to look into this, situation that's in Uyo Zonal Command. Of course, NAPTIP is the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking. Really, really quick raise. Child labor. So I think that's where I'd like us to start from. When we are talking about child labor, what does this mean?
Okay. Child labor, when you employ a child who is under 18 to do tasks, sometimes they are employed to work in plantations. Sometimes they are employed to work in quarry. We realize that the international labor law provides that anybody under 18 should not be employed. But when you're going to take a child at age 10 and give the child, offer assistance to her, because as the cloak they come in, they will tell you, we want to give the child assistance. Let's do this while we pay so and so fee. 18 is a child.
So you're even saying 0 to about 18 and the ages of 5 and 11, because I think the current info, I'm one person that likes to reason with English. When you put 5 and 11 working under worst conditions, you're saying that maybe between 12 to 18 worst kinds of labor. What would you call that? Because sometimes, like you said, how much of these children get violated when they get into people's homes. But is there any possibility within your constitutional knowledge of
be given labor at all? We believe children from ages 0 to choose a hand now. You find out that some people pick up children as well as 0 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like as is provided, and they take them home all in a vein. Some are on the streets trading, some are on the streets begging. Those are, in the first instance,
children taking care of children.
Children taking care of children. In the first instance, a child should not do those things. They get into, they become nannies. A nanny being a baby being a nanny to another, because these ones, they can't say anything. Sometimes don't even understand what is happening to them. So, being frank, the highest you can send a 5-year-old to it and then come back to you. But when such child is exposed to doing stuff, sweeping the house, mopping the house, taking care of other children, as babysitting another child, when he or she needs to be babysitted, the mistresses will have them wash plates. The other day, somebody reported a case where a child played and touched an auntie in the house. She was bending, so making to smash the child's head. Why did you touch me on the back while I was doing something? And with the hot Gary on the spatula. So the child cried and cried and cried. When I made inquiries, I realized that child was not to be in the house for companionship. So
and yes, you're manhandling the child. But what are some of the factors that are predisposing children?
A lot with ignorance on the part of the parents. Each 18, when the person is able to make some decisions on her own concerning things, her personal affairs. So when you have parents that think there's nothing wrong with giving to those people on thrust that the child is going to be given assistance to be another one is going, times are hard, you can hardly afford a meal, so somebody offers to pick your child. Willingly you give the child that took the child from you. Another factor I think is ignorance of the law, because if you know what the provisions of the law, and then we have another one as a lack of equal opportunities. Unemployment is everywhere. Everybody wants to be employed by the government. Sometimes I come on set to say, what we're doing. If you find something doing, you have a little business here and there, applying your skills to use, your children will not starve. They will have what to eat. You have what to keep them until that's
minimum by most families. It's not even keeping up. So, and recently I was faced with a family who has, I think, between 10 to 11 children in the village, and of course they're not doing so much, and so when they get out, send him to school and all the likes, but the economic realities are biting. Parents do not really have other options but these kinds of activities. Like you said, there is ignorance on the part that we don't even know what the law says. Some other people know what the law says, but like you said, wrong interpretation or the lack of proper interpretation to these laws. If NAPTIP nabs you, Okay, the person who is caught is the wrong person. Do we have implementation of these laws to the latter by the stakeholders, you know, who are responsible?
Okay, NAPTIP has a full-fledged legal department. We have the swinging into action by going for the arrest, the interview of the arrested suspects, because the person is not condemned. It's called the suspect until proved otherwise in court. And you're charged to court, and our lawyers are there. We have strong lawyers, and we have a strong legal frame to back up whatever we do. Offenses are treated per offense. For instance, child abuse. I'm not being specific, I'm just saying, for instance, you pay 2 million naira, 200,000, 400,000, but if you're found guilty or culpable of a particular offense, you are sentenced to jail with. Trying to step up some of the punishments for some of the offenses like rape. Others will know when you go in for it, you're not coming. A jail term of 7 years and then a fine of 500,000, 1 million naira, we felt is not enough. So we have the legal units that handle these things, and they handle them very well. And we have spelled out law. I missed it. I should have brought the NAPTIP Act, where we have all the conditions, all the punishments. That's the
It sounds good to hear that you're trying to step up, you know, the penalty for these offenses. But beyond stepping up the penalties, is there a way that NAPTIP and other agencies that are involved in curbing, you know, child labor and child trafficking, human trafficking for that matter, is there a way they go into societies to even find, you know, people that are erring against the law? For instance, every now and then we have police patrol around our areas, around our city. Maybe drive into you right now, we are going to see children hawking. We have NAPTIP officials drive by and see these kinds of children. What do you do in such scenarios?
Okay, we go on awareness strong in the cities because of the awareness, but the traffickers seem to have tilted to the villages where they do their business. So we go on awareness creation. We have foot soldiers. We use core members. We have vanguards, NAPTIP vanguards in schools. We have that's vanguard clubs in schools. We have informants. We do whistleblowing policy. Law enforcement bodies like the DSS, immigration, that is our mother, a close sister, civil defense. In short, NAPTIP is the focal agency in charge of coordinating all other law enforcement bodies to handle this, and they make referrals to us when they find cases. Our whistleblowers give us information. We act sometimes on tip-offs. Sometimes we also place ourselves as strategic places. We tell people, when we go out on awareness creation, we tell people what you see your neighbor do. When we bring out the ills, when you see your neighbor do something close to what, sometimes we even go into giving people our private lines, because sometimes they don't want to call the hotline, they want instant reply. Well, we tell them the hotline is there. Call with sister agencies, NGOs. We use the core members as our foot soldiers, the students all over, and then the traditional rulers in the community. When we go to them, that's how we've been having our cases. Our noses are also on the ground too.
So we'll just look for, you know, under you know, severe kinds of child labor, and we are predisposed to trafficking. But we see the fact that as a country, there's been partnership with different you know, institutions, especially international, to enact the Child Rights Act to domesticate the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So just in summary, do you think that with the adoption of these rights, soon, are we making progress with how much we are ridding the society of child labor?
Okay, NAPTIP, Nigeria. Trafficking is not just a Nigerian thing, it's a global issue. As the population increases, people tend to adapt more to crime. Children you find on the streets trading, sometimes they are living with their parents. They are not people's servants or trafficking, street trading, or any form of the family. So this thing is in the increase. We are fighting. It's a crime, an established crime, a syndicate kind of thing. It's not easy to just come up and... So we are now entering the local society, communities. Though the people in the communities find it difficult to give us some assistance or some help. So we are making progress, but we understand that there are still some clandestine movements of people from Africa or from place to place. But now it has become so open that because it is a lucrative business, there's commands, either state commands like zone offices or zonal commands as ours in Uyo. You realize that on daily basis, children are rescued from traffickers on daily basis. And it's not just children allow themselves to be trafficked because of greed, because of wanting to
make realities. It's just basically a matter of, having what to eat and go by, but, for the day. But I think this is literally all we can, unless people have this information out there. So we want to appreciate you very much, Nyobo Okwapio, for coming on the show this morning. Head of Public Enlightenment, if you are not, like she's also said, information is available for you to share with them if you ever see someone around you who is, trying. And when we return, we'll be joined by Victor Anilaju to look into the ministerial list as released by the presidency. Do stay with us.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extras for your desired return on investment and so much more. Advertise on Spectrum Television on Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai and Yekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 stories on how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
TV, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back, of course. This is still Rise and Shine, and we are on one beautiful hill somewhere in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Several conversations have already gone on. Please catch up on all that. Follow us across all social media platforms. Of course, we are being, sent to the National Assembly for screening. We have 4 ex-governors, 7 women, and 17 others make the list. In total, we have 28 names released in the ministerial list by the president and sent to the House, the National Assembly. Of course, portfolios have not yet been attached, but we are looking at the fact that several people are, being recycled in the system to take on the responsibility of certain ministries and agencies in the country. Good morning, Victor Anilaju. Very good to have you on the show this morning.
Yeah, good morning, yo. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. How do you feel now, finally seeing the ministerial list being released? What was your first reaction to the release of the ministerial list?
Well, it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
But I don't think there are some names in that list that we do not think should be on that list. But in the general overall of the list, we did not expect anything different. I think we have 4 former governors who played active role in the rigging of the election of President Tinubu. So, and we have some new persons, very few new persons into APC. So, but the truth about it is, for me as an individual, I don't see anything that that team is going to do for us.
Why do you have
APC as a party lack the ability to bring help to Nigerians. Because every minister is supposed to carry out the vision of their principal. And the vision of Asiwaju, Bola Asiwaju, is not looking as if it will cause an economical growth. Rather, his vision is towards taking from the poor. Taking from the poor. So we are
That
seeing.
is not what our president looks like. He looks like he's putting reforms that, you know, in eventuality will help us as a country. But let's navigate back into the last conversation you were trying to bring up. The four former governors of the state that have, you know, resurfaced as ministers on this list. What do you think their input would be, you know, to moving the Tinubu-led administration forward? Now, what I want us to really look into is their precedents as governors in their states. Of course, these governors are David Umahi. Okay, I do hope that, you know, network is not part of our battles this morning. Okay, we have David Umahi as part of the ex-governors. We have former Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State. We also have, I need to get those names right now, but the four of them, let's look at their precedents in their states whilst they were, you know, state governors. Do you think that with how much they delivered or did not deliver, that being on, you know, the ministerial list is any good for the country?
Well, being on the ministerial list, for me, is just the compensation because, you know, these four guys rigged the election of their states in favor of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But those are unfounded. Those are unfounded proportions, Victor Nilaju.
No, he's not unfounded now. He's in court of law, and the evidence in court shows that River State, Ebonyi, Kaduna, and these other states, they rigged their election. It's obvious. I don't come here to lie against anybody. I don't do that. I come here to follow the facts, the narrative that is already obvious out there. So let us understand that the nomination list for me is a compensation of those who they hope that supported them, that we keep supporting them to make sure that the illegalities of the APC-led government remains in power. Because I don't see any of those former governors any reason why they should be a minister as of today. In fact, the four of them ought to be facing trials in EFCC and all of that, because there's a lot of money that is not being accounted for. Let's forget about those who claim that they built bridges, they constructed roads. That's not it. Let's look at what cost, at what amount did you say you constructed a bridge? Was it an over bloated amount? So those are the things we should be looking at. We should not just say let's forget about the past and move on. You know, I keep saying this. I said Nigeria has to come in time where we have to add some, especially some former governors, to return some money back to the government, because they extort government from Kaduna to Rivers, even to Ebonyi. Ebonyi only did well in his first tenure. Immediately switched from PDP to APC. He took most of the funds of his state and was giving it to APC to do campaign. The fact is out there. They go and check. In the whole of the East, Ebonyi is still the poorest among the eastern states. Rivers is supposed to be one of the biggest.
Let's look at something else that is raising a lot of eyebrows with regards to this particular ministerial list. I don't know if Victor can still hear us. Of course, there's also concerns in some quarters that certain bigwigs within the APC did not make it to the list. I must also put out a caveat that the presidency has said there is still more to come with regards to, you know, ministers that will be listed. There's still going to be more people listed eventually. But right now, eyebrows have been raised with the fact that we did not see the likes of Ganduje, Fani Kayode, and Festus Kiyamo being listed amongst these ministers. Does this mean anything to Nigerians at this time? We know that Festus Kiyamo, for instance, was a loudmouth for the APC, but he seemed to have not surfaced on the list of ministers. Where did these people fall out of favor with President Tinubu?
The truth about it is that all these names that you mentioned have never helped this country. They are not out to help us. They are helped to extort from us. So Fani Kayode has always not been in one place. He still have an EFCC case to answer when he was Minister of
Aviation.
Aviation. He yeah, he took billions of naira, and today he cannot account for it. So I'm not lying against anybody. I'm stating the Tinubu-led government is still going to bring in more fraudulent people.
But we can't say
Why
that
why are we not?
all of these people are fraudulent. We can't always look at all of these people through the lens of fraudulence or
Uyo, Uyo,
cheating
Uyo,
Nigeria.
Uyo. Any person that admits to be a minister under Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you must be a fraudulent person.
No, Victor Anilaja, I'll absolutely not agree with you on that, because at the end of the day, whether we
Let me give
like
you a
the
fact.
leadership of President Tinubu or not, he must have a cabinet to work with. He has been
Let me
instituted,
give
at
you a
least for
fact.
now, as the President of the Federal Republic.
Let me give you a fact. An illegal occupant of the presidency will
We cannot
always
even say that, because
appoint.
until the election tribunal says otherwise, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu
Uyo,
is the president of
let
this
me land
country.
now. Let me land. You and I know that Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not win the presidential election. So I understand that you are here to present your program. So let a Nigerian like me speak. From Nigerians, especially poor Nigerians, Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not win that election. So every person that you see is that going to appoint, he will be appointing people that will support him to remain in that office. And anybody today that is supporting Bola Ahmed Tinubu to remain the president, that person is a fraudulent person. You can't steal a position unconstitutionally. You did not meet 25% of Abuja vote. You did not win the election. You read your way into that office, and you expect that we do not expect anything good to come out from the APC-led government. I've said it and I will keep saying it. And it is what is playing out. I said it before this election. I said it immediately they sworn in. This is what we see today. From 185 naira per liter, we're buying fuel today 700 naira. And you say that this is a legal president? A president that knows that the people voted for him will not increase fuel price from 185 naira to 700 naira. What Tinubu is just doing is just to benefit the people who illegally supported him to become the president. So whether you want to agree with me or not, if you don't have to agree with me, but this is the fact. The list that we just saw, the ministerial list that we just saw, is a compensation package. If you want to fix this country, there are some names we should see on that list.
Yeah,
And let
of
me tell
course,
you
we
the truth:
continue to.
the women are not represented. The youth are not represented very well on that list. And at this moment, I could tell you that list is just a shadow. Like I said,
Victor Anilajo,
everybody that
28
will be
names,
appointed.
28 names, 7 women listed. You still think that, women were under, represented? We should have gotten like a 50-50 representation on the list?
No, now this list is just about 28 now. There are
Yes,
still other more names that will come in. They
definitely.
are still going to make it all up to about
Okay, of course, we are speaking with Victor Anilaji this morning, founder, EPE, and himself, a former presidential aspirant in the 2023 cycle of election. We're looking at the ministerial list. Of course, there's a lot of concerns and questions rising out of this list that was released by the president yesterday. Of course, the presidency has said that more names will be coming, but right now, these are the ones that will be screened. Victor Anilaji, just so that we, do a quick wrap on this, is there even the slightest opportunity that, having sent this list to the National Assembly, that the National Assembly can do a screening, investigate, and say, Mr. President, we think that 1, 2, 3, 4 persons should not make it, into the office of ministers. They shouldn't receive any portfolio. Is that even possible? Or we're just going to have a rubber stamp activity called screening for these ministers?
That is not going to be possible. Those ministers, they will just get direct screening. Because even the Senate president, as we speak, has a murder case that's still in the court. So how can somebody who has a murder case screen people to be
Victor
what we are
Nilaju, we
just
know
seeing in
nothing
the
about the case
APC?
that you're talking
I
about, and
see.
I don't think that it
I am
adjourns
not.
with this conversation.
I am not lying. Do your search. Do Google or just do your search. You will find that the current Senate president has a murder case that is still going through investigation.
Well,
So let's leave
that's
that.
absolutely out of our line
Whether
of
you like it or
conversation.
not, whether you like it or not, that fact is out there. But we are not expecting them to do screening. They are just going to give them a direct pass because you cannot have illegal president doing things legally. No, everything about APC will just be going on like this, going through the illegal means to get things done,
Okay,
right?
so
So before you even increase the petroleum product, it was an illegal act. That
okay,
illegal,
Victor.
illegal act that took the price to where it is. So if I
There's
come here
something
now and
that
start
is
speaking
trending.
English,
There's a trending conversation around this
no,
ministerial list. If you remember, sometime last year, in the bid of declaring interest in presidency and campaign activities, there's a video clip of Nyesom Wike making the trends where he had said he's absolutely not interested in any ministerial position. He was gunning for presidency. He said any other person in Rivers State could become a minister, not himself. But right now, we see, as opposing to that particular statement, his name is on the ministerial list and he'll be heading up for screening. What are your thoughts? Is this something that Nigerians can hold sway over Nyesom Wike, or we'll just let it slide?
yes, so Wike, Governor Yes Wike has shown to Nigeria how terrible he can be. Is the mind and the brain behind the presidential rigging in Rivers State. That's why I said, don't quote me out of context. But that's why I said that this this ministerial list, is just a compensation list. Yes, so Wike rigged for Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Rivers.
Ooh. Okay, this is where we're even just going to take it a wrap because, of course, Sports Central is already on standby to bring you sports conversations. But you know that this is definitely not every conversation we are going to have on this ministerial list. Is definitely going to follow us into our conversations for next week. Of course, Nigerians are talking, everyone is listening, and let's see what the National Assembly is up to and what the Tinubu-led administration is up to. Thank you for forgiving our sins and being a part of Rise and Shine this morning. It's been a great delight doing this with you today and throughout this week, of course. Thank you for choosing Spectrum Television. Thank you for being a part of Rise and Shine. Let's do this again next week. Until then, I remain Uyai Anyeka, and enjoy your weekend.